If you don't know what you want to be for Halloween this year, but you want to sew your own clothes, this video is for you. Hi guys, I'm Tammy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to share 10 Halloween costume ideas with sewing patterns to match. So if you've been racking your brain and you don't know what you want to do this year for Halloween, hopefully this video will give you a bit of inspiration. The first costume idea is Poison Ivy, and she's a character from Batman, and honestly there's so many different ways that you can try and dress up as her. She has this kind of green corset, almost leotard outfit, and then she has matching green tights to match with that. I absolutely love the idea of how you can totally personalize this more to your style and go even with like a deeper cut v-neck for the front and even play with sheer fabric to make it a bit sexier. I've also seen people stick fake leaves to the actual corset to give it a bit more of a fun detail, and that's definitely something you can definitely play with. Even going to places like Hobbycraft will have like fake leaves you can just stick on to the front of the corset. The first pattern that I want to recommend is the McCall's pattern, and this is what it looks like. It's basically a costume sewing pattern that's a corset, and it has a really nice pretty detail. You can either sew it with a lace up back or a zipper back, and then also you want to make sure you use woven fabric for this pattern, maybe even things that are a bit more structured like brocade, jacquard, or even thicker satin. I'll definitely leave links down below with all the recommendations that I share in this video, as well as fabric links. The second pattern that I recommend for the Poison Ivy costume is the Buffy corset, and I absolutely love how this pattern looks. It definitely looks a bit more advanced. I absolutely love the channel details on the front of the corset, and it also has sleeves as well as a nice deep open wide neckline, which I think will look really nice for this style. You'll definitely need to use stretchy fabric for that pattern, so you're thinking like stretch mesh, lace, or jersey. Then for the green sheer tights, I would just totally buy these from the shop, and then also she does wear gloves, and you can definitely make these at home. There's lots of different DIY tutorials on YouTube showing you how to do that. I'll try and find one and link one down below. But if you do choose to use the Buffy corset pattern, the one with the long sleeves, I feel like you won't need the gloves on top of that. I just love the idea of making this as an outfit, and even just simple things like playing around with your makeup when you're doing this costume, like adding little green touches or even leaves on your eyebrow and stuff would look so cool. The second costume idea is Breakfast at Tiffany's, and this is such a classic Halloween costume. I always see so many people do this every single year, and it's when Audrey Hepburn wears this style of dress. It's honestly such an elegant classic style, and when you use the right type of fabric, this dress can just look so expensive. I've seen people dress up in the longer length dress to really mimic the original style, or you can definitely play around with going with a shorter dress as long as you have the right accessories like a pearl necklace and the tiara to match. I came across this pattern, which is the boat neck dress pattern, and I think it's a really great example of trying to replicate this style of costume. I absolutely love how this one looks. So it basically just uses stretchy fabric to get a more fitted silhouette. So you want to use things like jersey, spandex, or even ponte rome if you want like a thicker style. But if you do want a woven option, I did come across the Lynn dress, which I think is a great option if you want like a shorter, sexier vibe. It's very similar to the boat neck dress pattern, it's just it's made out of woven fabric, not stretch, and also it's obviously just much shorter. I mean, in general, a black dress with the right accessories, so the tiara, the pearl necklace, and also the right hairstyle will just bring everything together. I also think what makes this outfit is the long black gloves that she wears, so you can definitely buy these online, or again you can try and find a free tutorial on YouTube to show you how to make them. Now if you don't want to sew a costume or dress up in that way, but you still want to feel Halloweeny, then doing something simple like making a tote bag and then adding a cute graphic onto it will still feel like you're kind of joining in on the festive fun without having to actually dress up. So I'm in the process of making a tote bag, and I've already got this black fabric cut out. It's a canvas fabric, and basically I want to put a really cute Halloween graphic on the front of it, but I really want to create a really cool stitching detail on the bag, and I'm going to show you how I do that now. So I'm just going to take you to my laptop now, and as you can see I've got this open, and it's a really cute back design that I found online, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to print this out using my Munbin printer, and I'm going to show you how I then stitch this onto my tote bag really easily. This is such a great portable printer that is super lightweight, and it uses thermal paper, so it's much more lightweight than your standard printer paper. So this is what's just come out the Munbin printer, and as you can see it's a really nice lightweight paper. It's nice and easy to use, and also that's what the cluster of back looks like on the front. It definitely rolls around, but you can easily flatten this just with something heavy on top of it. It's not really going to matter that it's rolling because I'm going to pin this directly onto my fabric, so then I can use it as a guide when I'm stitching on the sewing machine. So as you can see, I've put the paper directly on top of my tote bag, and this is the right side facing up, and I've just cut around some of the backs to rearrange them so it's a bit more spread out on the tote bag. What I'm going to do now is take this to my sewing machine, and I'm going to use this really nice sparkly rust coloured thread for the detail of the back stitching. I love being able to trace around the shape with the paper on the fabric, so it's much easier to replicate the same illustration really neatly. The paper is super lightweight, so as it's going through the machine, it's really easy to sew with and nothing's getting stuck. So now the detail has been fully sewn, the paper is nice and lightweight, which means I can tear the paper off to reveal the stitching on the bag. As you tear the paper off, it won't affect the stitches underneath because the paper is so lightweight. Look how cute that stitching detail is on the front of the tote bag. I love how that turned out. I would definitely maybe add a few more just around, but I really love the overall finished project of this cute tote bag. I really recommend the Munbin printer for you to use. You can print on a continuous length, it's inkless, and also it's just so easy to use. I've left a link down below on where you can find this printer as well as a coupon code for you to use. The next costume idea that you could sew is a character from Squid Games that I absolutely loved when this show came out. I was kind of looking back at it and realizing how simple of a costume it is to make. It basically is just a tracksuit, sweater, and then also bottoms, and then you also just have to stitch that special detail with the numbers on the front and also get the white strips on the edges of the shoulder, and that's basically the costume. I was looking around for the perfect type of jacket pattern and I found two that I'm going to recommend. The first one is the Arlo jacket, and that's actually a unisex pattern. I really like the look of this pattern. It actually looks really similar to the jacket they wear in the show. The only difference is that they have quite a big pocket on the front on this pattern. I personally would just take that off. Also, I think I'd actually sew this pattern in a size or two up than my normal size just to give a bit more of a baggier look. So that's quite a straightforward pattern. The second pattern that I recommend is the Romy jacket, and this one looks really trendy and cool. I just love the way this pattern looks and the way it hangs. It could definitely be a trendier take on the costume. So for the trousers, any sweatpant pattern would do. I did find this one online. It looked really basic, cozy and stylish, and I personally would probably sew something a bit more simple if the jacket I'm making is a bit more complex. So for all these patterns, you want to make sure you find the right fabric to match that sort of sweatshirting vibe. So obviously you want to use sweatshirting fabric or even like a French terry, just so it's like a soft bouncy finish. And then also you want to make sure that you're using the right color to match the original costume. So the next costume that you can sew is this really iconic scene from the horror film Carrie. If you've never watched the film, she's basically a girl that develops telekinetic powers and she goes to her school prom and she gets drenched in pig's blood. It's a really iconic scene. I've seen so many people have so much fun with this costume because you can really make it your own. And it's basically just a prom style dress that you can drench in fake blood or smear with red paint or even just use red dye if you don't have anything like that at home. In the film, she wears a really pretty slip dress and I've got two pattern options for that. The first pattern that I'm going to recommend is a stretch slip dress, and it's a really nice take on a sexier, comfier version of this costume. It's got a really nice deep V neckline on the front, which just looks really sexy and cool. Also, I think sewing this in a lighter colour and then drenching that in red would look so cool. The second pattern that I recommend is the crossbeat bias slip dress, and that's also a woven pattern which needs to be cut on the bias, so you need to use fabric like satin, anything silkier or even viscose. I think both of these patterns would be perfect for this costume. I just love the idea of making a dress in a lighter colour and then just literally drenching it into a red so you get the kind of cool detail of the blood. You could even make them shorter for a different take on this costume and even wear a sash that says prom queen. The next costume idea is Catwoman, and I think this looks so cool. She's a character from Batman and she wears this kind of all-in-one bodysuit leotard style outfit, and I've got a few different ways on how you can recreate this. The first pattern that I recommend is this Simplicity pattern, and it's a bodysuit pattern which I think will be perfect for this costume. You'll definitely need to use stretchy fabric and preferably something like a stretch leather to get the same effect. There's also this McCall's pattern, which is another bodysuit pattern, but it has some really cool paneling details on the front to give it a bit more of a cooler effect. They both have zips incorporated into the design, so it's going to be really easy to slip in and out of. Now, if you don't like the all-in-one aspect of this costume, I do have another option. I found the Elation bodysuit, which basically doesn't have any legs, and then you can use this McCall's pattern for the trouser section of the outfit, and then when you pair them together, it kind of gives a similar effect. This is a great option if you like to have separates and also you want to make something that's a bit more wearable but you can pair with other things in your wardrobe. So the next costume idea is definitely an easier one, and that is dressing up as an angel. There are so many ways that you can approach this costume to be more sexier and sparklier or more pure and classic. I also came across this really lovely outfit and I absolutely love the delicate neckline, and also the fabric choice they've used and also the all white just feels really fitting for an angel inspired outfit. You'll need a pair of wings, and I could not find a good sewing pattern for that, that, so bear that in mind because you will have to purchase that. The first sewing pattern that I recommend for an angel inspired costume is the Rose Cafe bustier dress pattern, and it's a really nice example of a really lovely fitted dress that has nice delicate bust cup and also really cute tie straps. I would personally change the skirt to be a bit more longer and a bit more flowier to feel a bit more ethereal. But this pattern would work really well in a really lovely drapey satin that just moves really freely. The next pattern is the Marielle dress, and this one definitely feels a bit more structured, but I think it's still a nice contrast and a nice play for an angel costume. It has a really lovely corset detail for the top and then also a really lovely puffy skirt for the bottom. I also came across the Franny dress, which has a really lovely sheer corset detail option for the front, and I just think this is going to be perfect if you want a bit more of a sexier look. Again, you can make this with the shorter skirt that it already has, or you can play around with making it longer so it feels a bit more flowy and ethereal. Now if you're wanting more of a flowy loose dress, then I definitely recommend the Ella dress pattern. It has really lovely gorgeous sleeves, the neckline is really pretty, and also the silhouette just feels very angel-esque, especially if you're wearing wings with it. The next costume to try is dressing up as Daphne or Velma from Scooby Doo. I've always loved Daphne, and actually looking at her costume, it looks like a very straightforward sew. The first pattern that I recommend for this costume is this basic long sleeve top, and again it looks very simple to sew. I'd probably make the top in a purple jersey so it's nice and comfortable, and then also amend the sleeves to add a cuff at the bottom, that lilac strip that kind of matches what she wears. For the skirt section of this costume, you can definitely use a woven skirt or a stretch fitted skirt. I found this Ava skirt pattern online. I think it would work perfectly for this costume. It's definitely a bit longer, but I personally like the silhouette of it, and I think again I would just add a lilac strip around the hem to closely match what she actually wears. I do actually have a DIY A-line skirt sewing tutorial here on YouTube made out of stretch fabric. I'd probably use that for this costume and also just make the end of the skirt a bit more tapered so it feels a bit more fitted around the hem. Honestly, this is such a simple costume to sew. I've also noticed she does have the green scarf on her neck as well. Sewing a scarf is really easy to make. It's just basically a square of fabric that's satin or something like that, and then just hemming all the edges to make it nice and finished. The next costume idea is Sandy from Grease, but specifically her outfit towards the end of the movie. I honestly loved watching this film growing up and really looking at all the costumes. I think they're really cool, especially her all black outfit at the end. I think it's so classic. She basically wears an off the shoulder black top and then also leather pants at the bottom with a red heel. It's very classic, it's really cool, and I think it's a really easy costume to replicate. It's definitely a great costume idea if you want to sew something that you know you're going to get more wear out of after the Halloween period. So obviously you can wear the top and the trousers separately with other pieces in your wardrobe. The first pattern that I recommend for this top is this off the shoulder top pattern. You will need to use stretchy fabric to make this because you want to make sure that detail around the shoulder doesn't slip off. For the trouser part of this costume, I've got two patterns I'm going to recommend. The first pattern is the Nora leggings, and they're much more comfier. They're going to be more easier to sew. So you want to use things like stretch fabric to make this. You're thinking jersey, scuba, or even faux leather. Or you can use the McCall's pattern that I shared earlier in this video. That's also a stretch sewing pattern. I think the McCall's one feels a bit more like trousers and less like leggings because it has more details that feel like that. I actually think any of these paired together would make the perfect Sandy look. So my last sewing pattern costume idea for you to sew is a classic, and it's a vampire. I feel like this one is super easy to do because anything lacy or dark automatically feels very vampire-y if you have it with the right accessories. You could sew a long flowy dress or even a corset or even a short dress. Just pairing it with fake blood will make it feel very vampire-y. The first sewing pattern I actually recommend is this McCall's pattern, and it is actually a costume sewing pattern. It looks like a gorgeous dress sewing pattern, and the sleeves are very floaty. There's lots of volume in this pattern in the skirt as well. I think it just feels very grand, and to me that feels very vampire-y when you pair it with the right accessories. So fabrics like satin, velvet, or jacquard with this pattern would be perfect for a costume, especially if you're looking for a bit of a costume feel rather than a normal dress that you might have in your wardrobe. I also came across this McCall's pattern, and I absolutely love the way this looks. It's a really pretty dress with a nice corset detail in the back. This pattern sewn in a deep red or a black would be perfect for a vampire costume. I honestly just love that off the shoulder detail, and it just feels very vampire-y to me. I was also thinking last minute you could try the peony dress pattern in like a lacy fabric and sew the longer version to also feel a bit more of a vampire costume. Particularly the sleeves and the ruffle at the bottom in lace would be perfect. I hope you enjoyed this roundup of 10 Halloween costume ideas that you can sew at home. There's honestly so much to choose from, and hopefully this video has given you a bit of inspiration to see what you can sew this year. Again, if you're not really a costume person but you still want to feel very Halloweeny in the month of October, then sewing something like a tote bag or even just using Halloween themed fabric and making something and putting that around the house can make you feel really festive and in the spirit. Make sure to let me know in the comments which one of these was your favorite, and if you have any suggestions for us to try, I'll see you in the next one.